Welcome to the Butterfly Effect. I'm Chris Horner. This is stage 2 of Volta a Catalunya 2025. Today's race, when we look at the profile, it looks like a very interesting one because we have two category climbs on a stage that's about 178 kilometers long. I'll call it 110 miles. But the two category climbs are a category 3 and a category 1 that come in about the middle of the stage with about 80, 75 kilometers to go. They'll summit that category 1. But when you look at it before you went to bed last night and you see a category 3 and a category 1 in the middle of the stage, and people are talking about in the interviews before the race started, the riders are, that it could be a little bit windy on today's stage. Well, I'm thinking this could be those kind of stage like we see in the Tour de France with Peter Sagan when he rode for Bora Hansgrohe, where they just split the field and they get rid of some of the pure sprinters like Ethan Hayter, Ethan Vernon, and Pavel Bittner. Those guys can't climb. So if you had a category 3 that rolls up and down and then into a category 1, maybe you can start getting rid of some of the pure sprinters on this category 1 climb on this stage 2 stage. So when we start looking at it and the cameras come on, we see the Peloton. Things are getting interesting right away. We know 2 riders are up the road. Don't quite pay attention to them yet. Let's go back and look at the Peloton as we start seeing those big time sprinters coming out the back as we see Ethan Hayter drop. Next, we're going to see Pavel Bittner drop, but he's got teammates wrapped around him. 3 right in front of him, 1 behind him, and 1 more is going to be dropping out of the back pretty soon. Then we're going to see the next sprinter get dropped. That's Ethan Vernon. Ethan Vernon's one of the big-time favorites on today's stage. He rides for Israel Premier Tech, but he looks a little more lonely. Now, we start seeing Sepp Kuss on the front of the Peloton. Now I'm thinking Sepp Kuss on the front of the Peloton. Remember, yesterday they won with Matthew Brennan, with him wearing the race leader's jersey and with Matthew being a sprinter. What kind of sprinter? I don't know. He's a 19-year-old kid. How can I possibly know? I know at Omloop he rode really good at the Classics because I saw him do that. I know at GP Danone he won that, but it was a breakaway sprint around 9-10 riders in that group when he came to the line and won that. But I know he's got 4 wins already this year. So you got to assume he's a sprinter and he's climbing at the front of the Peloton right now all the time. Now we're going to see attack by Mario from BH. As Mario from BH attacks, I'm still wondering back there what Sepp Kuss was doing riding the front. Are they going to drill it and get rid of those sprinters? And if they are, how's Mario attacking right now? Well, Mario's going to bridge up to the 2 riders in front, Dago from Kern Pharma and Danny from Euskaltel Euskadi. And then we got 3 riders up there at about a 35-second gap. But you go back down and look at the Peloton. When I back the film up a little bit, Esteban Chavez, just before that attack from Mario, he was having it out, yelling, some cuss words being said from Sivakov over to Esteban Chavez. As we look, Esteban Chavez came close to crashing Sivakov. I don't know whose fault it was, but they're doing some yelling, and then Esteban Chavez bumps into the shoulder over there of none other than Nairo Quintana, and then after he bumps into him, he's go back arguing some more. Then Nairo Quintana is doing a little bit of talking with Matt Brennan. He's not paying attention, so he goes over and bumps into Chavez accidentally, and then after Chavez finishes talking with Sivakov, he comes back over and almost crashes Nairo Quintana again. It was kind of comical coming up this climb. This is what happens sometimes when the pace is a little bit interesting, a little bit nervous, but not hard enough to get everybody focused, and everyone's grumpy and upset because people have been attacking coming up the climb. And even UAE Team Emirates was following attacks earlier up this climb from Lidl's Trek Quinn Simmons. So it's been a little bit of a chaos and not quite clear, because if you're Visma Lease Bike or UAE Team Emirates or something like that in that range, we think if you want to split it into crosswinds, or you might go ahead and blow it up coming up this climb for Visma Lease Bike for the sprinters, or Caden Groves to get rid of those pure sprinters I already talked about. Or if you're UAE Team Emirates and you want to test Bora Hansgrohe out in the crosswinds, maybe you do some work on this climb. I don't know. There seems a little bit of chaos. But I know one thing's for sure. When you get into the crosswinds, it doesn't do you any good to blow things up if you still have Primoz Roglic on your team. Okay, so we see going over the top of the climb here, grab maximum KOM points. That's Mario for Burgos BH. He'll go over the top solo as he attacked his 2 breakaway companions. But Danny, there from Euskaltel Euskadi, will keep the KOM jersey because he picked up some points before the cameras came on proper. They drop down the descent. Mario gets a little squirrely down the descent. He gets caught by Diego and passed. And everyone from the original break, the other 2 riders, are getting wrapped up as UAE Team Emirates are bombing down the descent. They'll come up and they'll catch the lone rider up there, Diego, and as they catch him, the field's all together, and we're talking about 70 kilometers to go. So we got an interesting race right now. They'll come through the feed zone. One of the most dangerous sections in the whole peloton at every race is the feed zone. We see Movistar rider reaching over to feed the first rider. He feeds the second rider. Then he's got to reach deep to feed the third and almost crashes the Israel Premier Tech rider that was just behind the Movistar rider there when the feeder tried to reach way over. Now, why do I say it's the most dangerous? Well, the Movistar rider almost fell down the ditch side there after he almost knocked over the other feeder. And then when we start looking at the back of the field, you see riders coming through with no hands as they're wrapping the feed back over their head. When I went through the feed zone, guys, I grabbed my bag and then I took my bag and I put it in my teeth. I didn't take the time to take both hands off and wrap it over my head or try to fight to get it over my head with one hand on my bar. Take the feed bag, grab it in my teeth. When we come out of the feed zone, that's when everything's a little bit more clear. What's happening with the riders right in front of me, that's when I start worrying about what I'm going to do with my feed bag, and I'll take the strap and put it over my head, and then I'll start picking out the food that I want and then discard the bag later. But always keep your hands on the bar for sure. One's off to grab the feed bag, I know, but after that, put the stuff in your teeth, hold it, get out of the feed zone, get through it safe because it's the most dangerous section. Now, we're coming up to the interesting parts, and this whole stage has been interesting. It kind of looks like a sleeper if you're not paying attention, but it was a very exciting stage. Now, we're coming up to the sprint point competition here, and we see Bora Hansgrohe doing the lead out, but then we see UAE team member, I'll call it Sivakov, that pulls off of the lead out there and causes a little bit of chaos. Jan Tratnik is left up there on his own. Primoz Roglic doesn't know exactly what to do. UAE team members throw in attack. Primoz Roglic is looking to the right as Juan Ayuso's flying up the left side. Then Primoz Roglic sees it coming when he looks left, jumps on the wheel. But guess what? It's Juan Ayuso that gets maximum points here of 3-second time bonuses. We look, it's Axel Laurent from Ineos that gets second, and then Jan Tratnik gets third. Primoz Roglic, his teammate, gets fourth. So no time. So they kind of messed up there, Bora Hansgrohe, even though they tried to win maximum time bonuses there for Primoz Roglic. After that, we start coming up into the crosswind section here. UAE team members get on the front. Half-hearted on the front. Not really a very good job here. Sivakov is on the front, and you see his teammates. He's got Adam Yates up there, but his team as a whole is not on the front. You can't split it if you're by yourself on the front, so going hard doesn't make any sense to me. And honestly, if you're racing for GC and your name is Juan Ayuso, doesn't make much sense to me either unless Primoz Roglic is getting dropped. Because right now, the big-time favorites have to be Primoz Roglic, who we haven't seen race since Algarve, and then Ayuso. Those two guys are the ones really fighting for the general classification. Can they falter and not win here at Catalonia? Of course they can. It's a bike race. But at that moment, if you're one of those two names, you're not going to benefit if the group splits in half, no matter what, unless you can get rid of Primoz Roglic if you're Ayuso. That's the only thing that makes sense, and Primoz Roglic is in a good position. But we see Solarism come up there doing a little bit of work in the crosswind too. It's not going to work, guys, because Primoz Roglic is close by. And if you drop half the field, it doesn't matter because Primoz Roglic is close by, and he's your #1 competition. I know Egan Bernal's here. It's possible he can win. I know you got other talent throughout the peloton here, especially when you're talking about the Yates brothers and such. But one of the Yates brothers is the teammate of Ayuso, whose UAE team member, Solarism, is riding on the front. Doesn't make any sense unless you can drop Primoz Roglic. It's not going to happen, so you're just wasting energy at this moment. Okay, finally, we start getting some helicopter angles from the top of the peloton scanning back, and we see that post-picnic is not in this group still. So that means, of course, we're missing the sprinter there of Pavel Bittner. That's who we see in this big group chasing back there. It wasn't split off in the crosswind. These are the guys coming back from the climb as they got the sprinters wrapped in there. And we see post-picnic up there driving it like crazy to get Pavel Bittner back into the front group. Well, as the front group finally backed off a little bit of all that crosswind kind of semi-chaos happening up there, it comes back together with about 47 kilometers to go. And then with 45 kilometers to go, they're going to cross the finish line on today's stage. That means all the riders and all the sprinters are back in this front group. Ethan Hayter took just a little bit longer to get back up in this front group, but eventually he got there, and that means all the sprinters have seen the finish of today's stage. But guess what? It's still lumpy and bumpy before we get into the finish of today's stage. So once we start getting into about 25 kilometers ago, things start getting really interesting as we see Visma Lease bikes on the front, and they got Matthew Brennan, the yesterday stage winner. He's having good position. Guys, he's been in fantastic position throughout this race. This 19-year-old kid is something to pay attention to because he's riding spectacular here on stage 2. With Viz Melissa bike on the front, we start seeing guys getting dropped off the back with 18 kilometers to go. That's Jimmy Johnson. Jimmy Johnson, not the NASCAR racer, but it's Jimmy Johnson still nonetheless. As he's getting dropped, we see Viz Melissa bike still on the front, keeping Matthew Brennan there in good position. As they're dropping down the descent, they'll hold the front there for quite a while, all the way into about 10 kilometers to go. Once we get under 10, now it's chaos in the peloton as it's going curb to curb and everyone starts fighting for position. With 7.5 kilometers to go, I love this when it happens to the peloton when it splits sides and we see one group of the peloton on one side of the road, one group on the other side of the road, and then it'll merge back together just after 7.5 as the road starts to bend to the right. So the shortest road, of course, is going to go to the right and everything merges back together. We got a couple roundabouts to come through that is going to thin out the peloton. And then we're going to come into about just under 5 kilometers to go, and it's Liddell Trek's Quinn Simmons on the front pulling full gas. As he's going full gas, he'll hold it for a little bit until about 3 kilometers to go. Then it's Giovanni Aliette up there, and with Primoz Roglic from Bora Hansgrohe on his wheels. Bora Hansgrohe want to keep Primoz in good position under the 3K banner to go. They hold him under 3K, and we get into about 2.5. 2.5, it's time for Garrett Thomas to go to work. The Ineos rider is on the left side of the road and he's got some guys on his wheels. He's going full gas on the left side. He's got control of the peloton finally, and things are getting interesting. With 1.6, 1.7 kilometers to go, we're going to see Israel Premier Tech start coming up. If I look just behind G. Thomas, it's 3 Alpecin de Koenig riders there with Tibor. Tibor was solo in yesterday's stage 1. Then we got Edward Plankert and we got Caden Groves, who was trying to win yesterday's stage 1 but didn't have the legs to come around Matthew. So they're lined up now doing the sprint again for Caden Groves, but Alpecin de Koenig's coming up the left side with not 1, not 2, but 3 riders. That'll do a good job of bringing them all the way up to the back wheel near Alpecin de Koenig on the right side, and Matthew Brennan, yesterday's stage winner, like I told you many times, he's still locked on there by Alpecin de Koenig too. As the first Israel Premier Tech rider pulls off, that'll leave 2 riders there, and Ethan Vernon is the #1 favorite to win today's stage because Ethan Hayter, like I said, doesn't have the legs and got dropped a long time ago, about 35 kilometers to go. With that being said, we're starting looking at the front, and we see Garrett Thomas is starting to blow at 1.1 kilometers to go. Once he blows, okay, it's time for Alpecin de Koenig's Tibor to go to work. Del Grosso's on the front, driving it. Edward Plankert sitting second. Third is Caden Groves. As those 3 riders are coming under the 1K banner, Alpecin de Koenig are in a fine position to lead out Caden Groves. But guess what? It's not quite under control because we'll see AG2R come flying up the right side. That's Bruno Aramai. Bruno Aramai is there with Dorian Godin. As he's flying up the right side, he's going to take it at about 900, 850 meters to go. He takes it. Once we get into 500 meters to go, as we're coming up to that, we see Dorian Godin sitting second wheel with his lead out man in front of him, with Bruno Aramai doing a full sprint coming into 500 meters to go because it's going to start to ramp up just after 500 meters to go all the way up to the line. Soft ramp, kind of sort of a little bit harder, maybe call it about 4%. But at this moment, we see Bruno Aramai going full gas, hitting out, and then we're going to see Alpecin de Koenig, Ed Plankert take over with about 400 meters to go. As he takes over, he's in the left side, center part of the road there. Then he's going to move all the way to the right at 400 meters to go. He's hitting the right side of the road. We start looking at all the favorites. Matthew Brennan's still in the picture. Dorian Godin is in the picture. Axel Laurence for Team Ineos, he's in the picture. He's got a shot. And then coming up the left side, we're going to see there's Picnic coming flying up the left side. That's Pavel Bittner. Now, once we get into about 250 meters to go, Pavel Bittner is going to hit out hard on the left, but he's coming along the long side, the long way around, because it's a right bend all the way up to the finish. As he's hitting out at about 250, he's starting to gain a little bit, but he started a little ways back. Then we come into 200 meters to go. And we'll see Israel Premier Tech's leader there for Vernon as he hits out to start the sprint. And we're getting into about 200 meters to go, 210, 225. He hits out and his lead out man takes the post-picnic riders all the way wider to the left. This is opening up the door now for Ethan Vernon to start his sprint as he hits out at 200. Guess what? Caden Groves is hitting out at 200 too, but Caden Groves got the right side. Ethan Vernon is coming around the left side. It's the long way. Axel Laurence is still in the picture, but Caden Groves got the lead as they're coming around the bend with about 150. Now all of a sudden we start going 3 wide with Caden Grove still holding the lead. But Ethan Vernon's coming around the left side fast, and Axel Lawrence is still in the picture. As they had changed the positions, it's opening up the gap there for Matt Brennan, who's won yesterday's stage. Again, I'm telling you the same information. This kid's important to pay attention to. He's got the freedom. It's finally opened up. He's moving around the backside there of Ethan Vernon. He's starting his sprint. Once we get into 75 meters to go, Ethan Vernon's got just a little bit of a lead, but we're about 3 wide, if not 4 or 5 wide. It's an interesting sprint, but Ethan Vernon's got a little bit of a nudge on everyone. Coming into 50 meters to go, Caden Grove starts to lose a little bit of power. Ethan Vernon's still accelerating. Matthew Brennan's coming up fast, and then it's going to be a bike throw at the line where Ethan Vernon, Israel Premier Tech, will win today's stage. And second on the stage, this is very important, it's Matthew Brennan, second on the stage, so that gives him 6-second time bonuses. Third on the stage would be Caden Grove, 4-second time bonuses. So remember, Matthew Brennan, if he didn't get those time bonuses, he'd lose the race leader's jersey, but instead the 19-year-old kid holds on to the race leader's jersey. Now, he said in his interview afterwards he was boxed in a little bit. He was boxed into the very last minute when he started his acceleration. If you look over at Pavel Bittner from Picnic, who was starting his acceleration along before the kid did, well, they're starting coming up, and you see that Pavel Bittner can't even gain on Matthew Brennan there that holds on for second and keeps the race leader's jersey. Excellent day of racing. Lots of stuff happening. Nooks and crannies to talk about throughout today's stage. Tons. I could talk for hours on this stage. It almost looked like a sleeper, but there was a ton of action happening in the race. Congratulations to the Premier Tech rider Ethan Vernon. That was a well-deserved win after that much suffering getting dropped on the Category 1, and all of your teammates basically waiting to bring you back to close that gap up to the favorites and then stay in fine position to be able to win the stage. Your teammates deserve as much as the credit, of course, as Ethan Vernon does, which he does say in his interview. Congratulations. And now the young kid, 19 years of age, man, Matthew Brennan, you did a fantastic job. Never did I see you out of position. Never did I see you in some knucklehead position of putting yourself in the win. You look fantastic to get the second place and to hold the race leader's jersey. I look forward to seeing how you evolve and through the years to come. Like and subscribe. We got stage 3 coming where the GC guys are going to have to battle into the big mountains. Does Primoz Roglic have good legs? Did he fade in yesterday's stage 1? Or did he save the legs and was backing off to keep them fresh for tomorrow's stage 3? I can't answer that, but we'll find out tomorrow on the Butterfly Effect. Just you and me together. Like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys on the next video real soon.